On this week's program, the Bros cannot win gracefully. APOD makes a bad take while making a good point. A Wizards comment section makes X go boom. And we have a frank discussion about Clickbait featuring an idiot named Don. Welcome to Driving and Dragons. It's Monday, and that means it's time to examine people who chose to use intelligence as a dump stat over the past 7 days. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment on this video. And while there aren't a ton of comments on my videos, I'm proud to say that we generally have great discussions and insightful content that can be found there. Even if you don't comment yourself, I encourage you to read below my videos and throw a few likes because there are some real nuggets of wisdom to be found there, unlike in the subjects of this video. Also, check out my Patreon. When the 1974 Dodge Dart gets given away, paid patrons will be entered automatically, while everyone else will have to manually throw their hat in the ring the old-fashioned way, via the U.S. Postal Service. So on to the stupidity. We open the season with a visit from our good friends, the Bro SR. Luke Hart, over on the DM layer, posted a video about one-to-one timekeeping. He missed a few key points and made some unintentionally misleading statements about how the mechanic works, but it was overall a good video. But he did make one key mistake. Having picked up interest in the mechanic from Harmony Ginger before witnessing Kelsey Dion push the concept into the brightest public spotlight it's pretty much ever had, Luke forgot to grovel on his hands and knees and pay homage to B-Dubs, Jeffro Johnson, and the Bro SR. Now, he did go back later and add the comment about the essays from Jeffro Johnson into the comment or into the video description to say thank you. But B-Dubs was pretty quick on the draw to jump in the comments and call it Jeffro Gygaxian time. And if Jeffro had the first damn thing to do with creating the mechanic and start crying about how Luke didn't thank Jeffro, B-Dubs himself, or the Bro SR for giving him the gift of one-to-one timekeeping, and just, B-Dubs' normal thing of having a problem with not being worshipped anytime somebody mentions one-to-one time. Never mind that Harmony and Kelsey are the ones who piqued the interest over there. The same Harmony who is derisively called the woman's division by B-Dubs, who is very quick to tell everyone how no woman could ever measure up to the men of the Bro SR. And I love how she's the women's division when she's doing more to spread the Bros gaming philosophy than they have in the past several years, but she's rarely excluded from B-Dubs' idiotic rants about women in general. Anyway, I called him on this nonsense, saying that, not that the Bros don't deserve any credit, they absolutely do, but that they constantly demand more credit than they deserve, and they do it through various nonsense, like renaming one-to-one timing Jeffro Gygaxian, and more or less implying that they deserved almost creation credit for something that they didn't create. And boy, did this set them off. An avalanche of straw men, quote posts used to break up conversations and hide context, moving goalposts, and attempts to cast me as being somehow emotionally invested and frothing at the mouth over it. There were a handful of good faith comments and attempts at discussion, but between the zealotry, trolling, fallacies, and general cultish behavior, those were quickly buried. Probably the worst take of all came courtesy of Scudder for Mike. His entire position was the classic, why do you care so much? Or, if you really don't care, why did you comment tactic that people who know they have the losing position often take to kind of deflect the argument. As was pointed out, it's called commentary. Some of us have channels that feature reporting and commenting on things that happen in certain segments of the hobby. It's like asking the local weatherman why he tells people that sitting on their porch during the hurricane is a bad idea, and why does he even bring it up if he doesn't personally care about them? Well, it's because he's in commentary. That's what he does. The long and short, if I didn't have a YouTube that covers TTRPGs, I would probably never say the first word about the Bro SR or their flawed, if interesting, ideas on gaming. Maybe it's time for them to take a break from Appendix N and study some good faith debate tactics. Also, if B-Dub starts insisting you all use a Bro SR Kool-Aid recipe for your next game night, please don't participate in his Jonestown sting. In other news, APOD said one of the dumbest things possible on his way to making a relatively decent point. To paraphrase, the rules lawyer wins 9 out of 10 times, and a good rules lawyer works for the good of the table. He goes on to make a good point about how changing rules on the fly undermines trust in the GM and that it discourages planning by the PC because they never know if the GM will simply say that doesn't work because of reasons. This is a classic case of having a good concept, making several errors in implementing it, though. The rules lawyer should never win. Rule 0, the DM is the final arbiter, period. And there is no rules lawyer on the planet who can make up for a bad GM, plain and simple. APOD is making 2 serious mistakes here. First is asserting that the rules lawyer can somehow rein in a GM who is willing to arbitrarily alter rules to undermine the players. The second is confusing a rules lawyer for another knowledgeable player at the table who helps the GM by providing support. I run D&D 3.5 and I run Cyberpunk. Both are notoriously crunchy games with a ton of supplemental and variant mechanics. I know them very well, but that doesn't mean I have them memorized or that I know every interaction and see every situation from every angle. When one of my players steps in to say, hey, he should get an additional saving throw because of XYZ, that player is not rules lawyering. They're simply reminding me of a rules interaction that I may be missing because, for instance, it ties back to a character ability that they have and I might have forgotten was active permanently. When I make a ruling and that player disagrees and asks a question that is structured something along the lines of, well, shouldn't ABC because of XYZ? That is simply presenting a case from a different perspective that might make more sense than my initial ruling. That isn't rules lawyer behavior. Rules lawyers argue the semantics of the rules when the interpretation by the GM works against them, even if the GM's ruling makes sense. It is bad behavior because good rules lawyer isn't actually a rules lawyer. Or worse, he's just a player that's sitting at the wrong table with the wrong GM. In our next little step into the arena of Amentia, we visit a friend of the channel, Wizard Goes Boom. If you aren't subbed to him, you should fix that. Wizard posts questions that highlight the drawbacks to one-to-one time. For those who don't know, my issue with the Bro SR is their slavish obsession with rules as written and their militant one true wayism that holds that if you don't find their way of playing and their solution satisfying, then it must be that you were playing wrong. It's actually where the title for my You're Doing It Wrong series came from. It is a mockery of all the people who claim you're playing the game wrong if you don't do things a specific way, specifically their way. But Wizard asked, how does one handle stronghold building in one-to-one time? It could take a year or even years. Does that mean that player will have to wait a year, or do you fast forward time and the rest of his characters are in time jail for that long? Now, he wasn't posing this question with an agenda. He's an old school player, and it was likely meant to foster discussion, and it did. There was plenty of talk about using 7-to-1 or 14-to-1 time, playing other characters, hiring a foreman, etc. However, the question still throws light on some of the reasons that players may not have an interest in using one-to-one timekeeping. But because there were people pointing out things like not wanting to play multiple characters or having a character shelved for a year, that it's not appealing, or that it all but eliminates cliffhangers and other narrative devices that a GM can use in a stop time narrative game to create exciting situations by design rather than happenstance, that meant the bros just could not help themselves. Wizard's comment section went boom, blowing up all over X in a shower of snarky quote posts, strawmans from the Bro SR. Stuff like, I don't understand stop time play. What if time suddenly stops while you're playing? Or, how is my hero everywhere he needs to be exactly when he needs to be there? This is the one-to-one equivalent of people acting like one-to-one means that you have to spend 20 minutes going over what happens during a 20-minute walk-in session. There was a conversation happening, one that can make a lot of people's games better. But the bros can't have that. They must have total compliance with the one true way, running things for everyone once again. For those who would like to know, here is one of those major drawbacks that Wizard Goes Boom's question brings up in the periphery. Some people have no interest in running multiple characters to explore a game world. They want to follow the story of one specific character and that character's group. It isn't that their hero is always where he needs to be. It's that the game is telling the story of what happened when the hero was where he needed to be, and not the story of some other hero that happened to be off doing something else while their hero was building a castle. It's a different focus and a different style of play, and it's completely valid. I've run games their way long before Jeffro posted his first tweet. My players didn't enjoy them nearly as much as narrative play. The difference is that they could see how and why some people would enjoy that style of play, and they acknowledged it. This is something the bros as a group simply can't handle. To give you an example from the sports world, they play smash mouth football. It's all screens and runs up the middle. Some people like the spread offense with a perpetually empty backfield and 4 wide receivers. But the bros don't say things like, I prefer the running game and I think these are all the advantages. They say only Smash Mouth is actual football. Passing is the soup aisle, and if you throw the ball more than 5 yards, you don't know how to play football. Last but not least, we go into a primarily YouTube-related trend that in the TTRPG community that kind of needs to go away, possibly even faster than the trend of crying about the use of AI. This is the constant whining and complaining about clickbait. Just like the AI discussion, the problem isn't the initial objection, it's the extent to which it has jumped the shark. You see, the term clickbait is a lot like the term racist. Calling someone racist is a vile insult. It's a charge that better have real evidence backing it. Or at least that's what racism and racist used to be. Now, racist simply means I'm a minority and you disagree with, and I can't defend my argument against you, so I'm just going to call you a racist. It has become so overused and watered down that calling someone racist is just evidence that you can no longer have anything meaningful to say in the conversation. A completely meaningless term that no longer carries any weight. And that's what clickbait has become. Clickbait means that a title or a thumbnail is either an outright falsehood, like the classic example of having a scantily clad woman on the thumbnail and no such woman actually appears in the video, or it is so hyperbolic and overblown that it may as well be an outright lie. It's designed to get you to click on something of very little merit or value that you would otherwise not have an interest in. A prime example is Dungeons and Discourse. Every title that channel has is shameless clickbait. Stuff like Elon Musk is buying Dungeons and Dragons. Sure, the video covered a contemporary discussion about the world's richest man hypothetically buying Hasbro, but the clickbait title is structured like some kind of breaking news headline that Elon Musk had actually entered into a deal to buy the D&D brand, which is an outright falsehood designed to get people to click on something that would probably not have been interesting at all if it was presented honestly. Unfortunately, many TTRPG fans have jumped on the bandwagon of taking their definition to a truly idiotic extreme. It has come to the point where any editorializing whatsoever is labeled clickbait, often by idiots who don't even bother to click the video to see if the content covers the topic or not. People who label the title of an ongoing series clickbait then demonstrate that they have no idea what the video is about while trying to claim that they do because, well, their egos won't allow them to admit that they spoke directly out of their rectums when making broad declarative statements that were shown to be objectively false. Then they double down with the lies when it's pointed out to them. I'm not going to name names here to protect the guilty, but I'm thinking of a certain retired U.S. postal worker who has an IQ lower than the cost of a stamp, along with any number of people crying in Professor DM's comments when he titles a video, "The D&D YouTube scandal just got worse," when the video is literally about how the WotC had just screwed up their handling of a situation about D&D on YouTube. You may disagree that it was really a scandal, and you may say that how much worse it got wasn't really headline worthy. But that doesn't rise to the level of clickbait by any stretch of the imagination. And it certainly is not clickbait to give a YouTube series a catchy ongoing title. When Seth Skorkowski posts a video in his Tabletop War Stories, it isn't clickbait just because he said war stories instead of cool session recap from a few years ago. There's a reason I bring this up. If you want good quality content on YouTube that can enhance your games, you can't attack creators for doing basic marketing or establishing a brand. Quit crying clickbait every time a news video has an attention-grabbing headline or a series gets a provocative title. People wanted to watch Cheers. They weren't going to turn the station for guys talk in a neighborhood bar. Save it for the over-the-top nonsense that earns the clickbait title, like Critical Role just got canceled, when the video is really about how one specific set of Critical Role miniatures had their pre-orders canceled. That's clickbait. A title that deliberately misleads a potential viewer into thinking the Critical Role streaming show was ending, when it was really about one line of their products getting called off early. So yeah, people, just think about this kind of thing and don't have the knee-jerk reaction that, oh, there's some sort of emotion or a call to action in this title, must be clickbait. And people, word of advice, please take the time to actually read what people write instead of making up your own versions and then getting butthurt and childish over it. That's a quick way to end up on the show here. I'd much rather fill this time with stuff like how God of Ka accidentally amplified Condor DM by generating more clicks on his content than the Vulture himself does. So come back and see me later this week as I continue the reshoots on alignment and a later video on things you might want to consider before jumping into designing or publishing your own TTRPG content. Also, I think we may take a look at the TTRPG soundtrack and talk about converting some songs into some adventure ideas. Till then, I'll see you guys next time.